All right, cool. So I have a really special guest with me today, everybody. This is Fabi. And Fabi, I've been working with you for, gosh, it's been, I want to say at least it's been a year now at this
It's
point,
been
coming
over
up
a
to
year.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast time flies. 'Cause I remember having our first like intake meeting, and I was in grad school at the time actually, and I was like meeting with you
Yeah.
outside of my master's in public health, on, like one of the seats outside and stuff like that, talking to you. And I was like, oh my god, I was excited to like that you joined the program.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been, I think it was November 2024. I think 20 or 2025. No, 2024. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're already forgetting we're in 2026. So
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's been a long time. It's been like more than a year, so it's been a very long time. Wow. So, well, Fabi, let's just, this is great. Why don't you share with everybody like maybe a little bit about you, maybe about like where you might be heading to medical school, because I know that's like a big thing for you, and anything else you want to share.
yeah. So hi everyone. My name is Fabi Sosa. I'm originally from Salt Lake City, Utah, born and raised. Growing up in Utah, I always kind of struggled with trying to fit in with everyone else. So I knew for undergrad, I needed to get out of Utah. So I was really lucky enough that I got to go to the University of Southern California. It was my dream school. I applied literally the day before the application was due. So honestly, I honestly didn't expect to get in, but I was really lucky. I got to go to USC, and I also did my master's there through their progressive degree program. I got interested in medicine just quickly because of my exposure in California. Growing up in Utah, social determinants of health disparities were not super apparent. And so being able to kind of expand my worldview and see how different issues impact different marginalized communities was kind of my pathway into wanting to go into community engagement and outreach efforts. And I did that with being part of a nonprofit called Screenings Can Accessibility Network of Los Angeles, where we did a lot of outreach with underserved populations and coordinated health fairs to provide free and low cost services. And then did my master's of public health. So now I'm in my gap year since August, which has been kind of weird being out of school. But I started working with Alejandro my second year in my master's program. So it's been a long time that I've known Alejandro. I've been working with him, and he's kind of seen me go through the ups and downs of this application cycle for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like probably we've both been in it. Like, and I feel like I say this with every single one of my applicants, but I genuinely feel like I'm applying with them, and like we had some like pretty like high and low conversations, like during the process. But I think that's like a testament to just like the emotional roller coaster of the application process.
Definitely, yeah. And sorry, I forgot to mention about where I might possibly be going. As of now, I've received an acceptance to one of my top choices, which is the University of Utah. It's back at home, so really lucky to have like a strong support system here. So it's definitely where I'm leaning towards right now, but I'm still waiting on a few decisions, so could vary. Not sure yet.
Let's go. That's awesome, Fabi. That's awesome. I'm super excited for you. I'm super excited. And like, I guess let's just talk about that for a second, Fabi, because we were saying it earlier. It's like there's highs and lows to the application cycle, and I feel like a lot of people don't understand like that when they go to apply to medical school. They're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna write my personal statement. Yeah, that's stressful. Personal statement, MCAT. I got to get all that in. I got to get my primary application in. But nobody really talks about like the silence, I feel like, and like the angst that comes with that, and like how like emotionally heavy all of that is. I don't know. Can you speak to that at all, Fabi? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know a lot of pre-meds feel that.
Yeah, definitely. So like a little bit of background, in my undergrad, I was kind of always thinking about the next step. Like, okay, I finished my prerequisites. Now I need to start studying for the MCAT. Or I did my volunteering hours. Now I have to start thinking about my clinical hours. So I feel like I was always in this perpetual state of thinking of the future, not really being present. And similarly, I came across that challenge during my cycle where I was like, okay, submitted all my primaries, submitted all my secondaries. Now I have to wait. And I'm like checking my inbox every single day. Now the new thing is Admit instead of Student Doctor Network. So I'm on Admit, like checking all the life cycle results. And I'm like being extremely neurotic because, you put a lot of time, effort, money into this application process. You obviously want to see the fruits of your labor come up with something. And it was at one point where I was just generally checking my email once an hour, and I was like, okay, this cannot be your life. Like, yes, you've worked hard, but that doesn't mean that it has to consume you, because like in medical school and eventually when you're in residency, when you're attending, like you need to be able to compartmentalize different aspects of your life efficiently so that you can still feel like you're enjoying your life, not just going through the motions every single day. So what I started doing is I started to have try different hobbies. So right now I'm doing diamond painting. I just put on a show in the background or put on like a audiobook and I just do my diamond painting. I don't have one available right now to show you. It's literally on top of my laptop, but I just started doing things that I would have never done. I started making perfumes. I did more of my pottery classes. Now that I moved back home, I'm going skiing and just reading a lot more, that I have a lot more free time. I don't have to really think about writing my application anymore. So definitely just finding things that bring you joy, and to just remember this is not a time that you're going to have back in your life. I know some people are not applying in their gap years, they're applying during school, but similarly, like enjoying your last year of school, you're never going to be an undergrad again. You're going to be like, I think about my time in undergrad all the time, like, oh, I wish I would have done things differently. So I didn't want to have that same feeling with my cycle, like taking advantage of all the free time that I had. So yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So like, let me ask you, Fabi, like, and we'll get into like maybe like how many schools you were accepted to and stuff like that a little bit later, and so maybe the more nitty gritty, because I know people are like watching this and they want to know, right?
Right.
But I'm curious before we get to that, because I think people jump too fast to like, well, how many schools did you get to? What was your MCAT score? What was your GPA? What was your research? Right? Like,
Of course.
before we jump into that, like, I'm curious, like, what do you? And I know you, like, I know your application really well, but like for people that are watching this that don't know, what do you feel like really kind of made you stand out? If you were to like look back at your application and be like, that was something that really made me stand out. That's something I'm really proud of. Or maybe it was something that you're kind of shocked that people kept asking you about on interviews. Like, what was that thing or two things that you feel like really kind of distinguished you from the rest of from everyone else?
I would definitely say, and this is like a pretty common piece of advice that a lot of pre-meds will receive, but having a common thread, like common theme throughout your application. For me, as I mentioned, I was really heavily involved in a lot of community outreach and engagement services. And that was not just reflected in that one work and activities section. It was reflected in my personal statement. It was reflected in the research that I was doing, and even just talking about the different types of patient stories that I had in my clinical experiences. They all tied back to a lot of common themes that I took away from my master's of public health, which, just being able to kind of piece the stories all together. It was very cohesive, and it wasn't something that I had to like string at the last minute and it sounded a little bit choppy. I think everything just kind of flowed very cohesively together. And so I would definitely say that came up a lot, especially my nonprofit involvement. Having something that you're genuinely passionate about, because these interviewers, they'll know if you're really passionate about that. They'll know if you have a lot to talk about it. And a lot of the feedback that I received is like, I could tell that you're super excited about this, because you could just like, I kind of ranted and like kept going. I kept talking, and I'd be like, okay, I know I'm like going on about this, but there's just so much that I am really excited to tell you about what I have learned from these experiences. I think that's also another thing, is that when people say, oh, show, don't tell, I kind of had a little bit of a hard time with that, especially when Alejandra and I were working on my personal statement. I was like, okay, yeah, I know I need to show and not tell, but how do I do that? And definitely just taking out that meaning and how that applies, not just in that context, but at a broader level, and how you will serve future patient populations. And so having a story, it doesn't necessarily have to be community outreach. It could be whatever it is you're passionate about. So definitely not trying to fit a mold is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my question to that, Fabi, is it's interesting because you're saying there's like an underlying theme there, that your personal statement, your work and activities, your research, kind of like they all kind of followed a little bit. And I think I've been working with pre-meds a long time, and I know people will like anchor to a theme on their personal statement, and it seems very forced. Like, it seems super forced, especially with AI now, like with ChatGPT. It's like now you got a forced theme, and you have like really super overtly poetic language that just seems fake. It seems so disingenuous, right? And so like, I'm curious, you said like there's this underlying theme. How, for the person watching this right now, like, how did you decide early on enough in your undergrad and your master's year, like, this is what I'm passionate about, and I'm only going to pursue these specific things. Because I feel like a lot of pre-meds, like they will just kind of shotgun it and they'll checkbox it. And then they're at the end, they look back and they're like, yeah, I did a bunch of things. And I'm like, but I don't know how to make sense of all this. Like, it seems random to me. Like, how were you able to kind of do that? Or were you able to do that? I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, it was a little bit of a unique experience. I had to work a lot in undergrad. So I had about like 1 to 2 jobs, working about 20, 30 hours a week on average. So on top of having to juggle, having to go to work and then my classwork, I had to also see how I was going to fit the things that I was really interested in doing to not boost my application, but really contribute to my application in the long run. So I knew things that I didn't want to do was wet lab research. That to me was not interesting. I wasn't even going to try it because it didn't call my attention. So I think just doing things that you know what you don't like and what you do like. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that, oh, because everyone else does wet lab research and maybe it's easier to get a publication there, blah, blah, blah. Like, I need to do that. It's going to be very apparent if you're not passionate about it. And like, yeah, when you're talking about it, it's going to be like, okay, well, what did you take away from this experience? And you're trying to like grasp to see like what you can find, right? So yeah. I think for me, one, I kind of had that time constraint of, okay, if I know I have only limited time to really invest into something I'm truly passionate about, I need to find those opportunities. And for me, again, kind of my spark of inspiration came from seeing how health disparities affect not just my community, because I'm Latina, but other communities, and specifically USC is in South Central Los Angeles area. It's in a very underserved area. So being able to kind of see those play out in action, that was, for me, I knew that was my mission. That was my calling. Eventually, I know, like, I want to work at a FQHC. I want to be some part of like some free clinic, being able to go out to these different communities. So I didn't get that though until I had that exposure. So I think, it'll come to you. That's just how it was for me personally.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. And even just trying things that you don't know, you might like it. Yeah, I would say that.
Okay, Fabi, you said, again, I know you, but like, I know you're a worker, right? Like you worked at restaurants, I believe, and stuff like that. Did any of that? Because I know some pre-meds will come to me and be like, I worked at this barista or whatever. I don't know if I should talk about that. When I was on interviews, I remember at USC, when I interviewed at USC actually, and I was accepted there, my interviewer, half the interview, were just talking about me like bussing tables and being a barista at this big hotel in Century City. And I was like, don't you want to know anything else? And like, she was fascinated by this, right? And so I'm curious, did any of your work experience like come up in the interviews? Were people interested in it? Did they ask you, or did they not?
Yeah. So I worked as a hostess at a restaurant, and then I also did some Instacart, DoorDash delivery on the side, and then I was an Old Navy sales associate, and I worked at Topgolf. So I kind of like jack of all trades, kind of in customer service. Yeah. Definitely, they came up a lot.
Really?
A lot more than I remember. You told me that will come up a lot, and I was like, I don't think it will, and it did. And a lot of people were super interested, specifically in what I took away from that experience. And whenever I said, the skills that you get in being able to navigate conflict resolution, those are important skills that you can carry over as a physician, because you're speaking with patients that come from bunch of different backgrounds, who are coming to you with varying states of chronic illnesses or acute illnesses, stuff like that. And so you never know what's really going on and why they could be speaking to you in a certain manner. And so a lot of the experiences that I gained as a hostess, working specifically in West Hollywood, which is a pretty affluent area.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the experiences and just like navigating difficult conversations with the clientele that came in, I was able to connect that to my clinical experiences, and that really resonated with a lot of the interviewers. So yeah, definitely customer service experiences they love.
That is awesome, because it's like you were a sales associate and you worked in the restaurant industry, the hospitality. It's like those two things alone. And I remember when I worked in the hospitality, I worked like 10 years, doing all this stuff in the restaurants and hotels. And we'd always say, like, if people could just work one day in as a retail or hospitality, this world would be a better place.
Right. Yeah.
Because you probably sold so many like gnarly, like wild, outlandish things. but you
Yeah.
had to learn to keep your composure and try to understand the person, which is a direct translational skill when you get to medical school and when you become a physician. And I tell people all the time, like, that's like that growth, that emotional maturity is the biggest green flag for applicants. You know, like you don't learn these things in a wet lab.
Yeah.
You
You know.
don't. Like you don't learn them as a scribe even. Like you can get, maybe you hear a heated discussion, but you really don't learn. You're passively kind of sitting there, you know? So that's amazing, Fabi. I know you're a hard worker. So
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to quickly say,
No,
I had the interviewer say that more applicants should have customer service experience. So just putting that out there.
I genuinely hope that whoever's watching this right now, like puts it on a replay and like listens to what you say right now, because I know where you've interviewed at, and they've been some amazing institutions and very prestigious institutions. And the fact that you're saying that is like, yes, that's like very affirming for me to hear, because yes. So, Fabi, shifting gears here a little bit. Okay. People are dying to know, like, how many, like, I guess let's just start here. Like, when did you submit your application to medical school, your primary application?
Yeah. So I submitted it, I believe it was the first week of June. I think it was June 4th.
Okay.
So a little few days after when the initial primary application opened.
Okay. So you were in that first wave that went out to medical schools. And I think that's something we work really closely with, because that's super important to, like, people don't underestimate how important it is to be early. It's not, you need to be early, but if you have that opportunity, I think everyone should aim for that.
100%.
Because statistically speaking, just by the numbers alone, it's like you have a higher chance of getting accepted with that. So really cool. Job well done. Okay. And how many schools did you end up sending, I guess, secondaries to?
Yeah. So I ended up submitting my secondaries to 36 schools. I ended up sending primary to 37, but I mean, I guess it's not that big of a difference.
Yeah, that's great. And then how long did it take overall, like, for you to get those 36 secondaries, like, back average?
Oh, gosh. I remember emailing Alejandro, like, having mental breakdowns, because I'm like, I'm not submitting within 2 weeks. Like, I'm so stressed. Oh my gosh. But to be fair, I was working 2 jobs. I was doing my master's. I don't know what I thought. I didn't pre-write. I don't know why. Probably my biggest mistake, but whatever. I would say maybe on average it was 4, maybe bordering 5 weeks.
Okay.
There was a quick turnaround with some of them because they did have like 1 or 2 week deadlines. But for the most part, yeah. Actually, 3 or 4. We'll say 3 or 4 weeks on average.
And I think, like, Fabi, like, I remember how stressed I was specifically with you, because I was like, I'm not hearing back from Fabi right now. I don't know where she's at. I know but I knew you were under immense amounts of pressure from working, from grad school, and I knew it was like surmounting. And secondaries is just like a gnarly tidal wave for everyone. It's just like so gnarly and intense. But me and a lot of other people in businesses and advisors and stuff, they'll generally say about 14 days. Try to aim for that. If people go over, it's not a death sentence, but it's like, just try to get them in sooner rather than later. So you submitted week 1, basically wave 1, but then your secondaries 4 to 5 weeks. So you maybe kind of close that gap in terms of letting other people kind of quote unquote catch up a little bit, which I'm sure that like stressed you out a little bit.
Yeah, I was just trying to get them done. I was genuinely in the trenches. It was terrible.
But we made it. Now let me just take a step back really quick. Those 36 schools, and I think a lot of people underestimate this, and this is good for everybody watching too right now, is like, how did you go about like crafting, just generally speaking, those 36 schools, that school list?
Yeah, honestly, I had no idea how to build a school list, and Alejandro actually has a whole guide on how to choose them. I will say, honestly, in list of importance, I would say mission fit should be the number 1, but not just reading the school's mission. A lot of schools will have same vague mission, you know, wanting to do scientific inquiry and, you know, advanced care for marginalized populations. But how exactly does that school do that? You hear of schools being research heavy or service oriented. And I had to do a lot of digging personally to be able to find those types of schools, because one school that I thought was community service oriented didn't really have anything besides a student run clinic. So I wanted to find schools that genuinely had investments in the local community, especially for areas that are urban underserved, because that is something that I've been familiar with before. yeah, so just finding all the student engagement groups. Another important thing was the like the student affinity groups. So like for me, if they'd had a strong LMSA presence, that was another important factor for me. How long LMSA had been around for, how involved are they with the local Latino community? That was really important. So just finding things that were something that were of continual investment from that school. And that even consisted in me going on their social media pages and just like stalking and being like, okay, like, what are you guys actually doing? How recent was your latest post? So that's how I kind of found Mission Fit. And then I would say stats, just because you don't want to apply to too many schools that are top heavy, which I believe is above, if you're below the 25th percentile, right?
Yeah.
So, and that varies by person to person, depending on, of course, like what your scores are. But again, that's not everything, because there are a lot of students that I know that go to Keck, for example, that are not within their median bandwidth. So that's why I emphasize Mission Fit a lot more than stats for me personally. But I think people will have their differences in how they want to rank those.
Yeah, I think, Fabi, I agree with you, you know, like in terms of like Mission Fit, because even when I was a pre-med, I kind of got caught in that trap of, oh, I got to go to the MSAR. And for those of you that don't know, it's like the medical admissions requirement. It's like this big book that shows like every school for MD schools, their stats, their median GPA and MCAT and stuff like that. And I would use that to be like, oh, where's my median MCAT and GPA? And my GPA was 3.39. So I didn't even get into like the 10th percentile to a lot of these schools. And that hindered me from applying there. But at the same time, it's like, those are just medians, right? And it's like the school, it's almost like, oh, this, like pre-meds, I feel like we're self-perpetuating. We won't apply to a school because we don't fit in that bandwidth, right, that you were talking about. But the school doesn't really care about that. They just want like just get in the door with your 500 or your 3.3 or lowest average, because your mission aligns with ours, right? But they don't apply there. So only people that have the median MCATs and above apply there. So it's like, it's like self-fulfilling prophecy. Like we're as pre-med, it's our fault. We're like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, we're just pushing this even further.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I almost felt trapped in that. So like, I came here like, yeah, you're so right. But yeah, I would say I probably would have limited myself. Like I wouldn't have gotten, if I would have listened to that, of listening to the bandwidth idea, I wouldn't have applied to the schools that I ended up getting interviews at. So you never know. Shoot your shot.
You never know.
The out of state, in-state bias, definitely want to watch out for that. You don't want to waste your money. Apply to schools that have strong in-state bias. And I forgot what the other one was that I was going to say, but
maybe geography. But I think for you, Fabi, it's like you hit that very important part, is like, really the only time I tell people to use the MSAR is like, look at it for the residency bias, right? Like don't apply to a school where they don't accept California people, or they don't accept people from, like they don't accept people from other states. Like don't waste your money there, right? Even if you have the highest stats. So clearly you cultivated a very, I would say, targeted school list. I know you applied to 37. We submitted to 36. It was a very targeted school list, not too top heavy, you said, very mission oriented. And I love what you said about like, I did my digging. I didn't just go to the school website and look at their mission statement because it says the same crap. It's like, no, it's like you went to their social media pages. I tell people now, call the school, get plugged in to people who are involved with those programs, get your name out there, get the nitty gritty. Use GPT. We ran a workshop recently where it was like, I gave people the GPT prompt to put into AI, and it like will do the dirty work for you if you just put this prompt in, right?
Right.
And so it just shows the schools like, wow, this person, they like know us. Like they genuinely know us.
Yeah.
That's amazing, Fabi. I love that. I love that. Okay. So 37 schools, applied week 1, 4 or 5 weeks secondaries, 36 secondaries submitted, aligned Mission Fit for your school list. Very intentional, it sounds like. Okay, walking further along now. How many interviews did you end up getting?
Yeah, sounds very surreal, but I ended up getting 15 interview invites for this cycle.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I knew that already previously going in this, but I got chills right now.
I honestly would not have expected that. Alejandro, you know, Alejandro, when I first got my acceptance, I told Alejandro, because we had a meeting that day, and he's like, Fabi, sometimes I just want to reach that screen because you didn't believe in yourself. And I'd be like, I know, but it's so hard. Like, I was always just kind of like doubting my capabilities and like how this cycle would go. And yeah, I don't know. It was just nice that Alejandro believed in me this entire cycle. So
Let me ask you a little bit deeper on that, Fabi. Like, and I remember that call, like 15 interview invites is insane. Like, that's wild. But what was like the doubt there? Like, you're like, I didn't believe in myself, because I feel like a lot of pre-meds feel that. Like, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
yeah, I know the common saying is comparison is the thief of joy, but it's so hard not to, especially when you're pre-med, because everyone seems to be doing the same thing. And then the people that are doing things exceptionally well and seem very well put together, you're like, well, how am I supposed to compete with that? And I think also just knowing the sheer amount of applicants in the cycle, I think the recent AMC data that came out said there was a record number of applications and the median MCAT is increasing. And so it's like, all these things are like weighing on your mind, because it's like, okay, it's getting more and more competitive every year. Like, what am I doing differently that's going to make me stand out? And I think falling victim to that is such a disservice to yourself. And I'm just speaking from my own personal experience, because you're not able to truly see the impact that you have done and really appreciate the amount of work that you put in for the last minimum 4 or 5 years. And yeah, I don't know. And also being from an underrepresented background, it can be a little bit discouraging to know that the number of applicants from Latino groups, if you're Black, if you're Native, are slowly dwindling. So
Yeah.
I just think the barriers also were another thing that I was kind of like, oh, am I good enough to be part of this applicant pool? So it's just a number of things, but being able to just kind of take a step back and practice the appreciation and gratitude that you're even applying the cycle, because not a lot of people get to do it. Not a lot of people get to say that they've gone to school. And I just think the gratitude for those little things kind of helped recenter myself and change that mindset.
That's powerful, Fabi. As you're talking, I just kind of like, in my head, I was thinking like, because I share a very similar path as you did when you applied to medical school. Granted, I'm a lot older than you, and I started later. But it's almost like, for me, when I think back to it, and maybe this resonates with you, I don't know, but like being an underrepresented student in medicine, being Latina, for me, I didn't have anybody that went to medical school, and my mom didn't graduate high school. So there was nobody in front of me that kind of said, hey, here, this is what you got to do, bro. Like, just call me, or at least like point me in the right direction. I had none of that, right? And I struggled so much academically, and I made horrible mistakes. And I remember having to work my tail off while I was in undergrad and stuff like that. And I would be thinking, when I was applying to medical school, I was like, dude, I was getting mad. I was like, this is so unfair. I was like, why do I have to freaking work all these hours, pay all this money to apply to medical school? I'm dead broke. No one's got my back. I was so angry, right? And I was like, but looking back at it now, as you're saying, it's like, man, just being grateful. Like, being grateful that I had to go through that, because it really sharpened me who I am today. And it sharpened who you are today. And interviewers in medical schools see that in you. And I think that's why you got, like, granted, you're a smart individual, you're amazing, you've done so many amazing things, but it's that extra layer of like, wow, nothing was handed to this girl. Nothing was handed to this girl. She ain't no passenger princess, right? Like, she had to kick, scream, and bust down the damn door to get here. I want that person on my medical school.
Right. Yeah. I completely, like what you said with being first generation, and also the feeling of, this is so unfair. Like, the amount of times that I thought that, and I felt, wow, like, I shouldn't be saying that. This is so unfair. Like, of course, it's not going to be an easy process, but I think when you recognize the amount of privilege that exists within medicine, that is such a valid feeling to feel. And I struggled with like feeling guilty with feeling that, because I'm like, you shouldn't, like, it's not gonna be handed to you, like, hello. But yeah, I totally resonate with that. And I actually did have a few interviews where they asked about, with the other impactful statement that I wrote, they asked a lot about that, especially how it changed to shaping my path to medicine and kind of navigating the barriers that I talked about in not just my personal statement, but across the different activities and all of the reflections that I had. So it definitely comes up a lot.
Wow. There's two things that you said in there, Fabi, that caught my attention. It's like you kind of in this like almost cognitive dissonance. Like, I shouldn't be mad. Like, why am I mad? It's a privilege to like be doing this. And it's like, that's true, right? It's like a privilege for us to higher education, apply to medical school despite our circumstances. We don't want to be in this victimhood, right? Like there's that one thing. It's like, you're kind of like battling, like, I shouldn't be mad. No, I actually should be mad. Like, why am I even mad? Why do I have to deal with this anyways? Like, right?
Yeah.
It's like so meta. But then the other aspect to that is like, you mentioned your other impactful experience essay. And it's something I tell applicants right now in the cycle. I've done a video on it and a template, and I've coached people on this. It's like, it's optional. It's an optional essay for MCAS, and not everybody should write it. And I think that some people should definitely write it. And yours, I still remember how powerful yours was, and the fact that people asked about that, and you don't need to go into details about any of that, but like the fact that people asked about that is actually kind of interesting. It's a testament to people do look at that essay as short as it is.
Yeah, and I was honestly a little bit shocked about it because more of like my reach schools asked about it than the other schools that I interviewed at. And it was so interesting because a lot of the interview advice that you get is, oh, don't talk about these taboo subjects. And in my other impactful experiences, I'm more than happy to talk about it, but
we talked about all of them.
Yeah. I talked about how my father, he was deported, and that actually came up in one of my interviews. And the interviewer was asking me, from this experience, how are you doing now with everything that's currently going on in the world? And how do you think it's impacting the patients that you have served? So they weren't afraid to talk about it. And honestly, it was such a relief to me because it's like, I can actually talk about something that is impacting my community and has a significant impact for us as future healthcare workers to really be invested in these types of discussions. So,
wow, I think that's also like a testament to, it's a reflection of the institution itself, right? It's like the fact that the interviewers had the boldness to ask you about that and be like, no, but how are you doing with that? Like, I think, and I'm applying to residency now, and I'm very curious as to what questions the interviewers ask me. I'm less so, of course you want to answer appropriately, but I have an ear to like, what kind of question are you asking me and why are you asking me that?
Right.
And it sounds like that person, it kind of reflects the institution because these people, like the medical school, put these people in power to interview you. So
yeah,
that's really cool to hear, Fabi. It's really cool.
Yeah, it was honestly really surprising. I didn't expect anyone to ask me about it. As you said, like people actually read it. So it's like, yeah.
And there's a very specific structure to write that essay, and like we put that together, and like I think that's really important. And yours is super powerful, and there's a very specific format people need to go about writing that. It's not just a trauma dump, and
exactly.
Yours is certainly not a trauma dump. Yours was, this is what I've gone through. These are the things. This is how it's grown me. And it wasn't just like generic fluff crap either. It was like, no, this is like actually what it's done in my life. And this is what I plan to do moving forward.
Right.
Powerful stuff. Fabi, kind of moving along here. So we get all that. You got 15 interview invites, right? Okay, people are really thinking about like how many acceptances. It's January, so still more acceptances to come, more interviews to come. The game ain't over till it's over. So I think you'll probably get more if you haven't heard back from secondaries. How many though do you have currently?
Acceptances, sorry?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I have 4 acceptances.
Amazing.
Very, again, I can't even believe I'm saying that. I would not have thought I'd be able to say that. And then I have 1 wait list, and I ended up withdrawing from another one. So I'm still waiting to hear back. I have 2 interviews coming up, one this week actually. So I'm very prepped for that as well. But yeah, so I'm probably not going to know until March for a lot of these, and the patience it's taking.
And I think you applied only MD, if I'm correct, right?
Yes, I only applied.
And I think that's so normal for MD schools to wait. It's like, oh, we're not going to get back to you till February, March, and stuff like that. So 4 acceptances, and a lot of these schools, you're waiting on an accept. I imagine in a month you're going to be like, dude, I'm up to like 8 acceptances, 9 acceptances. So I don't know, like, but that's so cool because it puts you in a position of now leveraging your financial status, right? Like leveraging. Well, you're going to give me. This school's going to give me a full tuition scholarship worth, $350,000. This school's going to give me full tuition. Plus, they're going to give me a stipend every single year on top of that for living expenses. Yeah. This school's going to give me 75% scholarship. Plus, they're going to cover my rent. Like, right. So now you are and I don't think people think about this long term enough because and it's reasonable. They don't think about long term enough because they got all this other stuff they got to worry about. But it's like now you're in the position, you're in the driver's seat. You're like, I'm gonna kind of pit them against each other, and I'm gonna squeeze out, right? And so that's I'm super happy for you, Fabi. And we have workshop on that. We can meet together privately on advisory sessions. I have templates for that, and I can kind of coach you on that process of how to get paid. Get paid fully.
Yeah, you need that.
Amazing. Fabi, really quick, and we're gonna close out here in a little bit, but I'm just curious. The question I wanted to ask you is, like for people before you joined this program, like I guess what made you reach out to me? What made you sign up? There's a lot of pre-med coaches out there. There's a lot of big companies out there. I'm kind of on the smaller end, right? Like, what made you kind of come to me? I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, I actually met you 2024 earlier in the year because I was part of Latino students in medicine at USC. Right. And I believe our president, Carla, was the one that was in contact with you to come to do a workshop for personal statement writing. And I just happened to be one of the leaders, kind of guiding groups throughout the day to different workshop sessions. And I actually stayed for yours. And so I think just being able to see kind of your thought process as you go through the personal statement, the one that you edited there, seeing the thought process and exactly like articulating what you exactly want these admissions committees to see when they're reading this. So experiencing that workshop, I was like, okay, well, he clearly knows what he's doing. and then I keep following you on Instagram. And just because of the personal connection that you had with the LSM members, a lot of people knew of your work too. So I was like, I don't know why I'd never heard of him before. And that's why I ended up connecting with you. One, because of that personal connection. And I think also you work at a much smaller scale, which I appreciate. You're able to invest into the people that you work with. And I really liked too, when we first met, it's not you getting to know me, it's me getting to know you and seeing how, like, if you fit with this mission that I'm trying to, build for my company. Because it's true. Like, I feel like a lot of big, companies, the med school counselings, they just take whoever is willing to pay the price. And so I definitely appreciated the fact that it was not just like hey, I'm going to use you for your services. It's no, let's see if we work well together. So I think just a culmination of all that.
I think, and transparently speaking, is like, when I first started out, I was like, yeah, like I'm a new business owner. I'm just going to take on whoever is willing to like jump in this program and, pay for the services. Like I was kind of fell into that trap. But then I realized really quickly, it's like, I don't want to work with everybody. I really don't. And not everybody wants to work with me. And I think accepting that and realizing that, and instead like getting to know the person and allowing them to get to know me, and seeing if there's a fit there, that's what I look for. Right. And that's why I'm like so intentional with people like that I bring into Market the Mission now, MTM now. And it's like, but I want that person to like go get someone that's suited for them. Like maybe it's not me, and that's okay. Like I want them to go get suited with somebody who they do align with their coaching style, right? Because I realize that, Fabi, you've known me for a while now. It's like, and you've been mad at me before, and you've been happy with me, and like all the things, right? Like it's not for everybody. I run a very specific style, and it is unconventional, and it is a little bit radical, and it is scary. I think it's scary for when people hear the things that I say, and they're like, wait, is this actually going to work, Alejandro? I've been told never to do this, and you're telling me to do this. So it's scary, but yeah, that's kind of the way I run it, and I like the way I run the business. So it's proven to be very effective so far.
Yeah, and I will say I did have friends that used large, I guess, like counseling services, and I think the difference kind of was very apparent of the people working for that company were telling them what to do versus where I felt here. I felt very comfortable coming to you and saying, hey, like, I don't feel like this is working. And I wasn't scared like something was going to happen or you're going to get mad at me or anything. Like it's a two-way street kind of, I appreciate the advice that you're giving me, but also if something I feel is not being authentic to my voice, you took that into consideration. And so I really appreciated that. Yeah.
And that happened on your personal statement, I believe too. It was like, hey, I don't think this is working, Alejandro. I don't like the way this is going. And I was like, okay, let's change it then. Like, and like, let's do this way. And I was like, and it worked out great. And you have a really powerful personal statement, and I'm super happy for it. So I love that. Last question I'll give here, Fabi, is if there's anyone, I guess, like on the fence of like maybe reaching out to me or joining this program, like what would you tell them, or maybe like what was like the most valuable thing that you feel like you've gotten from this program working with me? It wasn't called Market the Mission when you first started, but now it's kind of shifted to MTM. Like,
Yeah.
what would you tell that person? What's like the most valuable thing you feel like you've gotten out of this?
Yeah. Well, for one, I think just having that first initial meeting with you over Zoom, the consultation, I think is really nice, because you never know like who the type of person is you're going to be working with. And I think being able to get insight into how you do things was really helpful for me. But also, you know, I'm first generation, so I really had no clue what I was doing with this whole application process. There was a lot of things that I was learning. And so I knew that I would have felt more comfortable working with someone who had a similar story to me, had a similar background, and who could be transparent in how this process goes. And so I'd say, like, if you are on the fence about it, there's always the consultation call. Definitely Alejandro is a really great person to work with. As I said, I really appreciated this being a two-way street. I feel like your voice could be lost easily in trying to be someone that you're not. And Alejandro truly gets to know who you are as a person, not just your application, and make sure that your authentic voice comes through in every way, shape, and form. And he really pushes you to do the best writing, because I feel like my writing was really suffering for a little bit there, but he sees your potential. And I think that if you want to feel confident in your application, you don't want to have any doubt in your mind, go work with Alejandro, please.
Yeah. I used to do, and Fabi, I used to do these consultation calls. I used to do them. I don't do them anymore now because there's so many people like trying to reach out to me, and I want to like take that time to dedicate to applicants that are in the program. But there's other ways. Like if people like, I will talk to them in the DMs. I'll send them videos and stuff like that. I'll send them voice memos and stuff, so people can kind of get to know me through there. You know, like a kind of discovery through the DMs and stuff like that. But I didn't even ask, Fabi, and I don't know if you're comfortable even sharing, but like people do definitely want to know, and I really didn't even ask. MCAT and GPA, is that something you're willing to share?
Yeah. I'm all about stat transparency. So I had a 518 MCAT, and then my cumulative GPA was a 3.9. My science was a 3.83. So yeah, definitely that kind of allowed me to apply a little bit more broadly. But again, everyone's story is completely different. I don't think it comes down to stats, because if it did, everyone with 520 plus would get into med school, and that doesn't always happen. So
honestly, and Fabi, and I know there's people that are gonna watch this and be like, well, she got a 518 and 3.9. Of course she got into all these schools, like, right? And let me tell you, Fabi got some interviews at some very prestigious top 10 schools in the country. But it wasn't that, because I have applicants every year that DM me and they say, I just had one not too long ago that said they got like a 522 and like a 3.9 something or whatever's. They DM me. They applied last year and they got 0 acceptances. Their school list was a little bit on the shorter side, and it was top heavy, but it was like, still, the stats ain't going to do it, because now we're in the age of everybody has good stats. Everybody's doing exceptionally well, but it's not that. They care about that, but they just care enough that you're going to not flunk out of med school. That's what they want to make sure of, right? That's all it is. It's like the mission fit, the resilience. Damn, I want this girl. I got to meet her right now. Like, this person wants it. That's what people want. And I think in the first YouTube testimonial video we did with Peyton, he has like 18 interviews. He was churning down acceptances or interviews, and he has a 500 MCAT. Yeah. Right? And so for anybody wants to go watch that, go watch that. Right. So stats ain't going to do anymore. Fabi, you clearly have an investment in a very particular population, Latino population, underserved folks. It's exemplified in your application, the work you've done in your research, your activities. Like, it's very, very clear. You're just a very hard worker, and that's what got you into medical school. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I completely agree. Stats are not everything anymore. Again, the average matriculant MCAT is increasing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to get high stats. I know a lot of people that get into med school, and it's because of their story, which is why I also emphasize the story, having that common theme, and then also creating your school list. If you have a bad school list, you're already set up for failure, honestly. So true. So true. Fabi, it's been amazing. And I just want to say thank you for this interview today. No, thank you for having me. Everyone, please go support Alejandro. He is great and really amazing to work with. So
I appreciate you, Fabi.